Hi, it's Kevin Bates here. So today I thought I'd talk a bit about inventing and patenting, and a particular example that I can give, which is I was talking to my broker about patents, and he mentioned that some patents sell a lot better than others. So I asked, well, which ones? And he said, oh, things in the space of telecommunications are still doing well, and he mentioned a few others, and then one of them that he mentioned was e-cigs. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So I went and bought one of these things, an electric cigarette, and I went down the local pub and talked to a few people outside the pub as to were they having any problems with it. And one thing that came up that several people mentioned was that when they try to unscrew this top part, it's sort of got two bits. The bottom part screws onto a battery and the top part screws onto the mouthpiece, and you refill the tank with this liquid that contains nicotine, and often when they were trying to undo the cap, the whole thing would come off the battery, and similarly if they were trying to replace the tank from the battery, occasionally the cap would come off and they'd spill liquid all over themselves. So I went away and thought, well, there must be a solution to this. And then the next day I was fixing the pedals on one of my kids' bikes and had an idea. So about 3 days later I drafted the patent, and it turns out that mechanical patents are an awful lot easier than software patents. And you're just describing a physical object that you want to build, which is not as complicated as describing a process and method implemented in software. Filed it on a fast track, and it should be issuing in about less than 10 days from now. So you can invent very simply and very quickly if you just identify a problem that needs solving and actually go and talk to some people who are facing that problem. Now, most people, when they have a problem, they just put up with it. You know, in the case of these e-cigs, they all had paper towels in their pockets to make sure they could mop up any mess. But as an inventor, you look at that and you say, I'm not satisfied with that. I want it to be better. Come up with an idea, write it down on paper, and that's basically your first step in doing that. Anyway, I can now put in a little plug, which is I now have an e-cig patent and continuation filed, but I don't really want those on my books, so I have no use for an e-cig patent. So if you happen to be running a company that could use some IP in the space of electric cigarette atomizers, and particularly the tanks, I don't know what industries there are. I think obviously there's the replacement for tobacco industry, and I believe that America is in the process of legalizing cannabis, and they use this kind of thing too. So anyway, if you're interested in the patent, please feel free to contact my broker Andrew. I'll put his email address in the comments below, or direct message me. And anyway, there you go. That's how you can identify a problem, think of a solution, and patent it, and as a result you end up with some intellectual property that gives you the right over a particular invention and allows you to prevent other people from using it, which, as you can imagine, is very useful in the space of industry, especially if you're in a leading edge industry, regardless of whether it's blockchain or electric cigarettes. I hope you found that interesting and gave you an insight into the inventing process. Ask any questions if you have any down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video soon. Bye for now.